people, so they wanted to get rid of them right away. But one of the things that's probably changed, that I've seen has changed the most, is the mites and how they have changed beekeeping. There's basically 7, there's more viruses in this, but there's basically 7 of them that are kind of pretty, affect the bees quite a bit. And we never really had much trouble with the viruses. Once in a great while you'd see the wing virus, the virus that attacked the wings, but we just didn't see it. And we didn't see it with the tracheal mites either. But we did see it with the varroa mite, because the varroa mite pokes a hole in the bee's body, and that's how the viruses get in there. And so that has changed beekeeping enormously. You can't keep bees if you don't control the varroa mites.
Gene, did you have something? Nope. We've been kind of talking on pests, so let's skip to the back page, and there's pests. So just to ask a real quick question, what's worse, foul brood then or the varroa today?
The varroa today. We could control the American foul brood if you really worked at it and knew what to look for and how to do it. But the varroa that's really tough.
So is that just one answer from 6 beekeepers?
One thing though is, I've only been keeping bees, I'm the young guy here by the way. I've only been keeping bees 14, 15 years, and I have never seen foul brood in any of my hives. But I have seen a lot of varroa.
So one of the questions is, and you just be brief on this too, but what are your thoughts about the varroa mite? But I think we know that, but possible treatments. What is the most effective treatment that you found over the years?
Oxalic acid, dribble, and
With a gray station.
yeah. Sure, it's a steam. It's not steam. You put it in, and there's a heating device, and it vaporizes it in the hive.
Anybody else with treatment for the varroa? Acylic acid.
We started using that in 1995.
I think I know the answer to this one too, but just another quick, or did you have a comment?
I don't know really where to go with it. There was one other one that was that worked better than Acrylic, but it worked too well. It contaminates your equipment. I can't even say the name of it right now. No, not formic. Not the acid. It was the white strip that we used to get. Kumafos. That killed everything in your hives but your bees, and then eventually did that too because the brood got contaminated there.
I could speak to that too. You know, we first started out with Apistan. That seemed to work pretty good, and then that, you know, tapered off, and Comafos came along, and that was really effective as far as getting rid of the mites, but it also affected the queens, and they weren't laying the eggs. So now you had the low populations. It didn't work. So I got to the point there, I kind of quit using anything. And I don't try to winter them. I just get new packages every year, clean out the frames, you know, and make sure you don't have any foul brood. Any suspect, get rid of it. And this year was one of the better years I've had for a long time.
One of the problems with the miticides that we've tried to use, they're good for about 3 to 4 years. But the first time you treat, you'll probably kill 98% of the mites, but that 2% are resistant, and that's your breeding stock. And they reproduce really fast, so in about 3 years, the stuff won't work very good. That's why the oxalic acid, I think eventually they will become, the mites will become immune to that too. What oxalic acid does, it attacks the outer shell of the bee. And I think that we're going to end up with mites that have a harder, less penetrable outer shell. and then that won't work anymore.
Kind of sticking with the theme about the pests, can I save money using old equipment? And think about the spread of disease, and think about it today. We know in the past, right after World War II, we had a lot of problems with foul brood. But today, can I save money by using old equipment, buying old equipment?
If you're starting out with bees, I would suggest you start out with brand new equipment and watch those bees build out that comb and just don't be afraid to open them up and look at them every week. It won't hurt them. But do use a little smoke and don't bang them and stuff like that. But starting out with used equipment, if you've never had bees before, unless you've got somebody that can help you that really knows and can look and knows what to look for.
As far as used equipment, I've mentored a fair number of people. There was a group down in south of St. Charles I helped. And I would not let them have any of my used equipment because no matter what goes wrong, it's due to that used equipment. So you can't stand the pain.
And with all that said, I don't think there's anything wrong with used equipment. You might want to, if you're a new beekeeper, you might want to get a second opinion, take an experienced beekeeper with you. But I think you can just tell by looking at the equipment. You can tell by looking at the comb, how old it is, and whether that's comb that you'd want to lay in if you were a queen. If it's all straight and clean and it looks good, and the same way with the woodenware. I don't think there's anything wrong with used equipment. Of course, you can get some disease and whatnot with that, but we've all bought and sold used equipment, and I don't think any of us are afraid of buying, maybe selling used equipment because then you get blamed for everything. But we've all bought and sold used equipment. It's not like if you have a beekeeper, your uncle or somebody getting out of beekeeping, 88 years old and wants to give you their equipment, that you should shy away from that. I don't think. Denny?
One of the things to watch on used equipment is how much miticide has been used with that equipment, because most of the miticides are absorbed by the wax in the hive. It's just like a sponge. And it doesn't release it, but it will affect, that's one reason why we have a really hard time raising good queens. That wax is so contaminated. And if you're going to raise queens, you want to use brand new combs anyway. And so I'd be careful of the combs for that reason. And I really recommend, if you're using any miticides at all, that you change those combs about every 5 or 6 years. You change them out. At least that, I wouldn't go on any longer than that.
I'm going to have to defend the other side, partially because I am in the business of it. I do sell nukes, and I sell quite a few every year. And with the nuke, you get 5 frames of old equipment, mostly old, because I do rotate queens or equipment out. I have already admitted I have a queen problem, and I agree that it can be. But I don't know really where to go with it, because I don't think it's the comb that's hurting the queen bee. I think it's chemicals that we're putting on the fields out there. And I was raised on a dairy farm. Would I be using the chemicals that they're putting on the seeds today if I was only a farmer? You bet I would. But I'm also scared to death of all that stuff. I've been trying to get all our researchers, and I know a lot of them, to check the ponds in our area that's got full of water and check the dirt in those ponds. Can I get them? No. And I can tell you the reason why. It's this guy out in California is kind of giving us an example of that they're talking about molesting all these actors and actresses. They're all scared of him. They're scared of the chemical companies. If they know and can prove it, will they do something about it? Yes, I got chemicals in my hives, and I've used chemicals forever because I cannot tolerate the parasites that they have. I say we have a problem with bees because of parasites, pesticides, politics, lack of pasture, and pride because we don't talk about these issues. I've had people tell me at big bee meetings, the national ones, you're a lousy beekeeper if you lose in bees. Well, I think everybody's a lousy beekeeper then, because they're not talking about or telling us the truth. The biggest helpers I've had sometimes are you hobbyists, because you're willing to experiment. And yes, I'll agree that you can get those chemicals in those hives, but I know this year, for instance, my nukes took off like gangbusters. I didn't get a crop in August, and usually I get a decent crop in August from goldenrod. This year it was cold in August, and the goldenrod didn't produce anything. Most of my crop came in early. I'll even tell you how much crop I get. I don't know how much I got per hive because they died all summer long, or they were superseded all summer long. I started out with 85 hives this spring. I sold 85 hives to other beekeepers. I don't know what those 85 did. But I let everybody come and get my bees, and they take the pick. So I had the leftover half. I have right now over 10 barrels of honey with what I gave away and sold out of my honey house. And I got I started with 85, and I got 68 left. So you can figure the numbers any way you want. Somewhere where the divider is one of those numbers in between. I better get off my soapbox.
Thanks, Jim. And then the last question about pests is the best way to handle ants? Water boat, or what's the best way to handle ants?
Never had an ant problem.
If you're using intercovers, you can put borax, like a tablespoon of borax on the top. That usually, it depends on the kind of ants for one thing. Sometimes you can just take if you can find some really nice juicy grass, just put a couple of handfuls on top of the intercover, then put the lid on. Lots of times when you come back, there won't be any ants. I don't know what happens there. I think Charlie Hoffman is the one that told me about that, the grass.
The ants on the inner cover, a little cinnamon sprinkle in there and they're gone.
Yeah.
It's good on peanut butter and toast too, but
There are different grades of cinnamon, and you want to buy the best grade you can get for the bees.
I move them, either with a forklift, which I own, and I go down south, so I gotta watch out for those suckers that can't throw cover on the floor and leave it there, on the ground and leave it there, because those fire ants will be under it in no time at all. Or I just move that hive a little bit, get it away.
Okay. As you got older, how have you changed your beekeeping practice? For example, deeps versus mediums, height of the hive, different season preps, different equipment. So, I mean, this is important because all of us are getting older. So I want to know what kind of equipment to buy now so it'll be ready later.
In 1995, I ran out of equipment. I ran out of deeps. I didn't have enough deeps when I was making my divides. So and I usually, at that time, I was producing all of my honey over 2 deeps. So for that summer, I just put a queen excluder on top of the single-story deep, and I had 10 frames in those deeps, and they were all really good combs. And I piled on the supers, and I did very well. The only problem was when I took off the supers, there was absolutely no honey in that single-story deep. The queens had used every frame in that hive to raise bees. But they actually produced more honey than my 2-story colonies did. And so I experimented with it. So as soon as I took the honey off, I would have